All right, so this time we're having breakfast for dinner because when is that not acceptable? So here I'm actually making a breakfast sandwich. This was my second attempt at filming it since I didn't quite capture it the first time. And this one actually wasn't even for me because after I made the first one, I wanted my boyfriend to try it. So this one is his, and at his request, I put pecans in the waffles. And also because he was complaining that he didn't get to eat all this good food I was posting in all these videos. So I had to shut him up real quick. And in fact, if you guys follow me on TikTok, then you already saw me making this sandwich, but you didn't see me making mine. So I used what was left over to make one for myself. And for those of you who always ask me for an always pan-like review, this is your moment. This is so non-stick that usually you can't even get the food out the pan. You cannot tell me that this legit doesn't look like fried egg, don't it? So I even included a little, cheese porn for you guys. By the way, this is the violife mature cheddar. Same one that I used in the grits in the last video. And so this is one of my favorite brands because as you can see, it melts beautifully. So if you're one of those people who like a good cheese pull, got you covered. And by the way, these waffles are the quinoa pancakes that I made in a previous video. So anytime I reference an old video, I will link it down in the description box where you can find all of these recipes. And by the way, if you like sweet wine, you will love this because it tastes like straight up juice. The only way I know that it's not juice is because I get that little feeling like I have to pee, which is really annoying and why I don't usually drink alcohol. But it was movie night, so my boyfriend brought this over along with some cornbread, which was amazing. This is also from Whole Foods, by the way. And we watched The Banker, which I highly recommend. Not only was it very entertaining, but it was also very educational because I had no idea that these events even occurred. And it was kind of slim pickings in my refrigerator at this point, but I did have an apple. So I was like, yeah, we're just gonna do like a cinnamon apple situation. But I was like, ooh, you know what would be even better? Apple pie. So I sauteed it. And I swear I have the memory of a goldfish. So while I could still remember, I pulled out some cherries to defrost overnight. That way I could make some jam later on. And since I was running low on ingredients to make meals, I did decide to go grocery shopping. And trust me, I have noticed your request for a grocery haul. So the first thing that I do when I get home is I wash everything. Nothing touches my counter until it has been lathered by my hands with soap and water. I just use Castile soap. And then I lay everything out to dry. I try to pick up enough to last me about a week and a half, if not more. But before the current events, I used to only buy about 3 days worth of groceries because I have limited space. And as far as how I store my produce to keep it freshest the longest, what I do is I will put a towel inside of my containers for any leafy greens, and anything that has roots like leeks and scallions I will put in a glass of water. Tomatoes I leave out on the counter, as well as potatoes and onions. For those of you who asked me how I actually grew my sweet potato slips, this is it. I don't do anything. I just leave them in this spot, usually with other stuff piled on top of them, and I guess they just start to sprout because they're in the darkness and they just so happen to be getting enough moisture. And I do plan to take you guys through like a proper grocery haul, but at this point I was starving. I had to stop, drop, and eat immediately. So for me, there's nothing simpler than a sandwich. And I'm from Philly, so soft pretzels are life, which means that these buns are fire. I've been eating them for years. You can find them at Whole Foods. These are one of my absolute favorites. If bread was a staple for me, I would buy these all the time. But since I can't do that, I just buy them for special occasions, like when I'm making sausages. So I'll be making that later. But for this, I just added the last of my deli slices, slice of original chao. And I actually put this into a pan so that my cheese would get like all melty because we're going for kind of like a brie. And then I just sliced up some pear, but you could also use apple. And I also had that with a sparkling lemonade. And in case you guys can't tell, I'm quite the ice cream connoisseur. Mint chocolate cookie was my favorite Ben & Jerry's flavor before going vegan. which if you follow me on Instagram, you know I was way too excited about finding in Target. And speaking of Target and trivia that no one asked for, my mom cannot just say Target. She always puts an S at the end of it. So she'll be like, oh, you going to Target's? And I'm like, no, I'm only going to one. And speaking of my mom, this is a dish that I've gotten from her because this is something that she used to cook all the time. Well, not all the time. This was like home fries, only she would add kielbasa to it. So that's exactly what I did. Just added some vegan sausages, and everything I'm using will be linked in the description box. So if you guys are ever curious about brands, in case I'm not showing them on screen, then they will definitely be listed below. Just pan fry some potatoes, onions, and peppers, and you finish that off with some ketchup and some hot sauce. And for me, breakfast has always consisted of orange juice. I just remember it always being my favorite, especially the ones in the cartons. But cold press is way better than anything you will ever buy in stores. So I make my own juice, and the only thing better than orange juice is orange pineapple juice. So that's exactly what I made. And I added some MSM powder, and it's best taken with vitamin C, which is why I'm using it in this specific combination. And that was breakfast. Actually, it was more like brunch because I eat quite late in the day. And along with my house guests, my mom also brought me these chips. So I snacked on those, and later on also had some jackfruit. And then for dinner, I am making another Nourish bowl because I really enjoyed the first one, and it has been a while since I had rice. So this time I, again, used sweet potatoes, but I prepared them different. And I steamed them instead of roasting them. And then I just sauteed them in a little bit of butter and agave to bring out the sweetness. And this bowl is actually inspired by a meal that I would get, again, at a restaurant called Dig. And it's one of those places where you just kind of build your own. So you start off with the base, and then you add your sides and your protein. And I also get this kale CEASAR that they make. It just has cashews and like cauliflower shredded to look like cheese. It's genius. So I made my own version of that, and I first massaged the kale so that it is easier to digest. Add my dressing, and then normally I would get this with like a marinated tofu something or other. I don't know how they prepare it, but all I had was these last 2 slices of bacon, so that had to do. And I just had to. Avocado, always, and then finished it with a little bit of basil pesto. And I know what you're thinking, that's not a pesto. It looks like a vinaigrette, and I agree with you. This is the way Dig kind of prepares theirs, so that is what I was aiming for. And I didn't want to steal too many leaves because I have a basil plant, and for a while there, it was kind of touch and go. The next morning, I started the day off with some lemon ginger tea. And in case you're thinking I'm out of my mind, I promise you this was before the weather got really warm. So hot beverages were completely acceptable at this juncture. For a second there, I thought I was making a golden latte, and then I was like, wait, there's noodles. So here I'm making ramyun, but I added oat milk, and then to that I just added, you know, like the packet that comes in the noodles. You just gotta trust me. I know that sounds weird, but this was delicious, and I actually need to buy more, you know, for research purposes, just to see if maybe I was starving this day and I'm imagining that it tasted fire when really it was just mediocre, or if it was actually as good as I'm remembering it. So we'll be making more of that. And then I finished off the rest of my orange pineapple juice, or should I say pineapple orange juice, because at this point it was more pineapple than it was orange. And this week I was really craving French fries, so I went ahead and bought some frozen ones. And then I sauteed up a lot of onions because, in case we haven't been properly introduced, my name is Arian and I'm an addict. And while I was waiting, I took the liberty of making some sriracha mayo. And the great part of making this yourself, the ingredients really do make a difference. Like, this is good sriracha, and this is my favorite mayonnaise, so this tastes like nothing I have ever had in any like restaurant. It was actually better, and you can adjust the amount of heat by, you know, putting more or less sriracha. So highly recommend. And my fries are actually just, you know, the side on. So the main event was a brat sausage. This is the Beyond sausage specifically, and of course I put that on a pretzel roll with a generous helping of spicy mustard. Just put a little smear on there. And had I had more of that mayo for dipping, it would have been perfection, but that was the last of it. So I gave myself a little side of ketchup. Here I'm making a green smoothie, and it looks like that consisted of mango, orange, kale, and I'm guessing I used water. Yep, that would appear to be confirmed by the water droplets in the pitcher, Arian. And these quarantine dishes are hitting way different, so I didn't have a big enough glass to actually pour my smoothie in. Therefore, I had to distribute it amongst these 3 smaller ones and still had a little shot on the side. So I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again, that my smoothies are very generous. This is like 32 to 34 ounces. So that's why they keep me full, because they're actually quite substantial. And then later on, I had the most delicious nachos. And on top of them, I am putting the siete blanco queso, I believe it's called, along with some sauteed kale, pico de gallo, and of course, guac. These were amazing. And it was kind of cold this day, so I also made a golden latte, which this recipe and process is also in a previous What I Eat in a Week video, so I will link that down below, along with the entire playlist. And if you are enjoying this video and more like it, do consider subscribing and giving this a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.